Hey, 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 hey. How is everybody?
Character Protective Services, this is Lila John. Are you calling about? Temporary reverse hair. Okay, and the character theme?
How are you?
Alright, what's the opposite?
How's it going?
Kate is leaning out a window looking at the 5 o'clock construction guys working on the house next door. Bella.
Okay. Ooh, thunderstorms too, all day long? That's awful. I mean, it looked like it's going to rain here off and on, and then the sun would come out, and really, my hair. Come on. I look like I just pinned my bangs back. That's all I did. I just pinned my bangs back to get them out of my face. Wished all my hair would go up. See, I grow it out just so I can cut it off. Nana needs to move. When South Florida, I didn't realize South Florida got that much rain. I mean, I knew Florida got a lot of rain, but dang, that's a freaking lot of rain. I don't know how long I'm gonna let it grow out though. Hey, Miss Shirley, how are you? I gotta color my hair. I don't know if I get around to doing it before I go or not. You know, I'm sorry, but I cannot quit looking at this freaking cover. I mean, it is just so freaking awesome. For those on TikTok, this is what I'm reading. Ooh, y'all can see the reflection there. That's what I'm going to read tonight. This is just, whoever was on there got off when I flipped, I guess. I mean, it's just, I just want to drool over this freaking cover. It's the colors. It's not just him, it's the colors. And how bright, Miss Shirley? Deliciously good. Mm. Oh my gosh, y'all. Have you watched their series that I'm watching right now? And I don't know where all it's at. I'm watching it on Netflix, but it may be elsewhere too. Oh, it's about elves. And it's only a two season show, and then they wrapped it up, so it's not a long show. Um, but it's called Shannara. Anyways, it was filmed down in New Zealand, and one of the main actors is a druid, and I think I read he's like 51. Oh, excuse me. I just eat supper and it makes me sleepy when I eat. And he kind of looks like this guy on here, only his head's shaved around the sides and it's it's shorter on top than this guy's for sure. And but he's got hair on his chest and he's got ruins carved in all over the place and he's scarred up and he's built like this dude and he sounds just like Liam Neeson. And I'm like, oh yes, oh, and I'm watching him and I'm drooling and I'm just like, oh, this is supposed to be a young adult, but damn, he's good. Oh, he just makes the whole movie. Oh. And don't even ask me his name because I can't tell you. I don't even know. Let's see. Shannara Chronicles. Alright. Maybe Chrome over here. Probably just shut me down. La 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 la. Nina, am I going to have an author tonight? Shannara, Shannara, Chronicles. Nina, are you still with me? Are you listening? His name is Manu, Manu Bennett. So you guys can Google him. Hey, Olivia. No sound? Why no sound? Everybody else can hear me. Manu Bennett. Oh my gosh. He's from New Zealand. He's a New Zealand actor. Dang, delicious looking. Ooh. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. It's getting kind of late here. Okay, chapter 1. Let's see. All right, it starts off with a male reader. I don't know if he's the main guy or not, so I might have to change his voice. I can't wait for the fight tonight. It will be fucking epic. A bloodbath. This was not the first time Killian Blackcrown heard these words. Being the son of an alpha meant training, responsibility, and a lot of fights. Fights meant blood, and blood meant certain death. Killian watched Ginger, one of the unclaimed females of his pack, as she boasted about, oh, well, excuse me, I guess that was a her. I can't wait for the fight tonight. It will be fucking epic. A bloodbath. Hey, Kelvin. Welcome aboard. How are you? Well, bye, Kevin. He said hey, and then he left. Huh? Okay. This was not the first time Killian Blackcrown heard these words. Being the son of an alpha meant training, responsibility, and a lot of fights. Fights meant blood, and blood meant certain death. Killian watched Ginger, one of the unclaimed females of his pack, as she boasted about tonight's fight. He was only feet from the conversation, yet people talked. My legs are cold. I have like capri leggings on. My feet are cold. My legs are cold. They knew who would fight tonight. Everyone knew. The air surrounding the pack was filled with negative energy, and he hated pack. He hated everything about it. Salty sea air blew in from the Atlantic in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina. Kill Devil Hills was an appropriate name for the town of his pack lived in. Kill Devil Hills housed the devil himself, his father. Killian was expected to fight tonight, to fight for the role of alpha. His father made damn sure he knew this and wanted his oldest son to take down everyone in his way, mutilate them, destroy whatever stood between him and his fucking throne. But Killian wanted more out of life. He didn't want to rule by fear or intimidation. That was his father. Blood and death were how the current alpha ruled. You will be ruled or you will die. It was the best motto, but it worked for his father. No one dared stand up to the man who would kill anyone, even his own children, if they bothered to question him or his authority. Even if he did win the fight tonight, what would he get out of it? A woman who wasn't his mate and a pack he didn't want, all while fighting a guy who was determined to kill him, while Killian's father watched with a demonic grin on his smug face. That bastard would even goad the challenger on to win, just to see how far he could push Killian. His father knew the challenger would not win, but it still didn't stop him. The older man lived for the sport, loved it, and maybe it was an addiction. Keep the pack strong by killing off the weak. Save me a place up close, Ginger yelled to her friend. She turned toward Killian and smiled, then sauntered over to the man. But before I go, come here. She reached out for him and slid her hand behind his neck, then pulled him down to her. She pressed her lips to his, then whispered, Win tonight, lover. Win for me. Then we can fuck in his blood. His stomach churned and he wanted to vomit on the woman right there. She left his side and jogged toward the fighting pit. Turn this light on. Oh, got up and close and personal with TikTok over here. Hey gang, how are you? My son, the soon-to-be alpha will fight Johnny, the low-life son of a bitch tonight. Johnny thinks he can best my son, but we all know better, don't we? We all know Killian will. Well, hell, it's part of his name. He'll kill the bastard. Killian closed his eyes and let out a long sigh. He was tired of the fights, tired of proving he was worthy of a pack he didn't want anymore, and he wanted out. Brother, called the familiar voice of his brother Lucian. Killian opened his eyes. Lucian, shouldn't you be front and center with Dad? I'm on my way. I want to see you rip that bastard's arms from his body and beat him with them. He frowned and shifted his stance toward his brother. You sound just like him. You know that? I consider that a compliment. Where Killian stood 6'4", Lucian was closer to 6'2". He may be slightly shorter, but his brother was tough and wouldn't hesitate to take out the competition, even if that person was him. And the thought often scared Killian. You shouldn't, he told Lucian. Dad shouldn't run the pack based on fear. You know that. And if he didn't, all of the pack would run all over him. People would take advantage. Why the fuck would a pussy be in charge of a pack? Wait, are you pussying out, brother? Lucian chuckled and shook his head. Do you not want to fight? No, not really. You're welcome to go in my place, though I'd rather you not fight at all. Lucian's eyes glowed their golden yellow, the color of his wolf. Then he smirked. I love a good fight. The adrenaline, the sweat, everything about it. The blood, the fucking afterward. I live for it all. And that's the difference between us, Killian mumbled. What? Lucian asked. Killian shook his head. Nothing. Just, he sighed. Go on to the field. I'll be there shortly. You better, or Dad will not only hunt you down, he'll kill you and make me alpha. If you want it so bad, I'll give it to you once Dad dies. Lucian pushed his brother hard. Fuck you, he growled. If I'm an alpha, it's because I earned the title just like you'll earn it. One day you'll fight Dad for the title. Earn that shit, brother. He pushed Killian again, and this time he growled. Touch me again, and I'll make sure you're the first I fight tonight. Yeah, there it is, he growled, and with a sadistic grin. Now, claim your fight tonight, then fuck that ginger bitch. Lucian walked toward the field, and Killian sighed. Why was this his life? This wasn't how a pack should be run, by fear and blood. Where's the trust and respect that their leader would have their back, no matter what? A loud explosion sounded, and he realized gunpowder must have been dumped into the fire to announce the fight was about to begin. It can't start if I'm not here for it. Killian looked at his surroundings, finding himself alone. The brisk air was impending, weather swirled around him. Winter was coming. The first snowflakes fell the other day, leaving a light dusting over the not yet frozen ground. As a shifter, he ran hot, and the snow was a welcome reprieve. He approached the crowd and found his father sitting on his throne. He had it carved out of an old oak tree, and it looked ridiculous. It was similar to a toddler throwing sticks together and calling it a chair. His father stood, and a grin spread across his lips. My son has arrived. The crowd went into an uproar as they turned to find where Killian stood. The people made a path toward the fighting ring. Killian's hair blew across his back. He closed his eyes and lowered his head. His heart hammered in his chest and anxiety spiked. He had to do this. He had to leave, not fight. This wasn't him. Not now, not anymore. Get over here and fight me, you pussy. Killian opened his eyes, lifted his chin, and found Johnny, the challenger, at the end of the path that was formed for him to walk through. He fisted his shirt and pulled it from his body. The crowd erupted once more into cheers and growls. Killian removed his pants. Then, instead of stepping forward, he shifted into his wolf form and, in a breath, he turned on his hind legs and sprinted off into the opposite direction, the wind blowing against his fur-covered body. You fucking coward! His father yelled in the distance behind him. I'll kill you when I find you, Killian. You're dead to me. Dead. The harder he ran, the softer his heart pounded in his chest. He was leaving it all behind him. No more alpha, no more fights, no more living up to the expectations of a demon. He was free. He renounced his pack, his brother, his father, all of it. He would be on his own, and there was no better way to start this new life. He needed this to survive. Otherwise, the pack life would have killed him. As for Lucian, he would have to worry about his brother another day. He was lost in the ways of their father's ruling. In time, things may change, but for now, Killian needed to look out only for himself. He would set up a life somewhere far away from here and any other rival packs in the area. It would be tough, but it could be done. You're dead to me. The sound of his father's voice echoed in his mind. The wind whipped through his fur the harder he ran. The ground was soft from the last rainfall and melted snow, and his paws dug harder into the ground, tossing mud into the air as he sprinted. Trees seemed to blur in his vision in the North Carolina terrain. Soon the winter snows would fall. Until then, he had to get as far away from his father as he could. The man was a natural-born killer with instincts higher than anyone he ever knew. He could sniff out and track his prey. Even if said morsel crossed a river, his father would find him. In the distance was a cabin he had purchased and restored. It was on the middle slope of the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. The cabin was once a rundown piece of shit that barely had a roof and floorboards. He gutted the place, completely restored it, and had it available as a hiding spot if the desire ever came. And that moment was now. He had electricity mounted through a nearby pole, running water, and a full bath. There was space to grow his own garden. Not that he had a green thumb, but he could learn. No one had followed him or knew about this place, not even Lucian. He kept it that way for a reason. If one person knew of your plans, your whereabouts, your alternate plan to surviving life, then all the preparation to stay alive would have been for nothing. He held on to the he held on to the thought of his own place to be his own man, a lone wolf on the brink of what felt like insanity. This was the right decision. He carried a pain of guilt for leaving Lucian behind, but in time he would go back for him. Lucian would take over as pack master. His brother resented him for the longest time, bitter that wasn't born first, and probably still did. He wanted to rule, not be ruled. He had a thirst for blood, just like their father. Somebody on TikTok said, "You're giving racist vibes." Bye. Okay. However, there was still a soft side to his brother. He witnessed it once when two younger pack teens were picking on a girl half their age. Lucian charged in and snarled at the boys, grabbed them by their necks, and threw them across the ground, then dropped to his knees to bend to younger female. He wiped at her tears and told her they would no longer be an issue for her. The child hugged Lucian, and when that happened, his brother froze, unsure what to do. His eyes met Killian's and he motioned for his brother to hug the girl back, and he did. A part of Lucian's black heart melted that day and beat for a different reason. Then their father showed his ass in the town square. He grabbed Lucian by the hair and yanked him to his feet. "No son of mine will bend the knee and wipe a girl's tear." The child ran in fear back to her parents. Their father pulled Lucian by his hair and his brother's feet dragged across the ground. Killian started toward his father, but Lucian held his hand up and waved him off. "No," he mouthed. Killian stopped and a sadness crept through him. Knowing his father knowing his brother would be beaten for showing a softness to an inferior creature. Killian was supposed to lead out as alpha. The echo of his brother screaming still haunted the memories and nightmares he felt. The echo, let's see. I got it. Let's see. Killian was supposed to lead as alpha. The echo of his brother screaming still haunted his memories and nightmares. He felt a dampness seep into the fur near his eyes. Their father would beat them until they bled. He would snarl, lash their backs with a belt, all while consuming whiskey. Their mother protected them from this side of their father, but after she died, the gates of hell were open, never to close again. He was to take over as pack master of their clan. He was expected to lead in his father's passing. Not today, not ever. Hey TikTok, I am reading Alpha Rising, Rise of the Alpha, Book 1 by Julie Morgan. Chapter 2. Yes, they are weird because there's nothing racist about what I'm saying. Chapter 2. "Father, please don't make me do this." Cordelia Golden lowered herself to her knees by her father's bedside. He lay in his bed covered with blankets. His skin was beginning to gray, and she knew it wouldn't be long before he passed into the next life. "You must think of the pack. They cannot be without an alpha," he whispered to her. He laid his withered hand over top hers and gave it a gentle squeeze. "Please do this for us, for your sister, for me." "Father, I would do anything for you, but I refuse to marry a man just so he can claim the title of Alpha. I'm your firstborn. Let me become the Alpha." He coughed and Cordelia brought a used rag to his mouth. He spat into it, then laid back down. "It's unheard of having a female as Alpha, and you know this. You're tougher than half the men out there. You would be an amazing leader, but having a female lead this pack, you would be attacked left and right. I cannot leave this world knowing this. You must set things in order. Then let me find my mate. Allow me to marry the one who is destined to be mine. Allow me to take her, Packmaster. Cordelia closed her eyes and let out a long sigh. James McBeal, one of the hunters of their pack, came into the room. He was tall and broad, and he was a bully. He pushed his way around people, took things from the smaller ones, like their weapons, food, money. It didn't matter. If he wanted it, he would eventually have it in his hands. He made his way through the women of his pack, and he also stated on numerous occasions that he should be alpha when her father passed. Of course, for this to happen, he would have to mate with Cordelia and make the bonding official. She wanted no part of that or him. He disgusted her completely. Not in this lifetime or the next, she told him without turning around. Leave us. This is a family matter. Come now, that's not what you said the other night, James teased. She whipped around on her heels and fisted her hands by her side. Stop with your lies and gaslighting, James. You and I, she motioned between us, will never be a thing. Now, leave my father's room and our home. You are not welcome. He's part of the pack, Cordy, her father said, using her nickname. We don't have time for this. He coughed again. I'm dying, and the pack comes first. It always will, no matter what. Then please, sir, grant me your blessing and no! She cut him off and turned back to her father. She sighed and rubbed at her temples. She knew her father spoke the truth. The pack always came first. There was no changing his mind once it was made up, the old stubborn fool. She wasn't ready to give up on her dream yet either, and she was most certainly not going to entertain the idea of mating with James. The thought made her want to vomit. James, leave us, her father said. As you wish, James mumbled, but not before he whispered next to Cordelia's ear. You will be mine. She gritted her teeth and stepped away from the man. He chuckled as he left the room, closing the door behind him. Father, you're leaving me no choice here. She stepped closer to his bed. Leaning over him, she pressed her lips to his forehead. He felt chilled and clammy. Cordy? Oh, Cordy. The familiar voice of her younger sister Sarah called to her. She looked behind her as Sarah stepped into their father's room. She recently turned 23 and was of age to marry if she so chose, but like Cordelia, no one was worthy. Their father always boasted about wanting boys for his children, but since he was blessed with girls, he should toughen them up just as well. His love for his children never wavered. He was protective, loyal, and a wonderful leader. He was fair in his rulings and never put out a punishment of death. He was respected in his pack, and the only time he was ever challenged for pack master, it was Cordelia who fought the man. The man had growled in her ear that as soon as he won, he would kill her father, rape her sister, and put a babe in her belly. The pack would be his and his alone. The rage that day drove Cordelia to a new level of insanity, one she never wanted to experience again, and she won. The fight ended when she ripped his throat from his neck. In her wolf form, she stood over the dead body of the fighter as his blood oozed from her mouth. Cordelia wouldn't leave her home for almost a month. It was her first kill, and it caused her to have nightmares for weeks afterwards. Sarah slept next to her in bed, and her father was never too far away. I did it to protect you. I did it to protect you, she cried to her father, to protect Sarah and our pack. He would have ruined everything and broke the pack apart. He would have taken all the women for himself and killed off the men. He said as such, her father asked. Not in so many words, but yes. Coming back to the present, she faced her sister. What is it, Sarah? She motioned for Cordelia to join her in the corner of their father's room. Pictures of the girls hung on the walls from when they were babes to their adult years. Other photographs were of Sarah and Cordelia in their wolf form. Cordelia's wolf was a pure white, like her hair. Sarah's wolf had a blonde hue to it, not quite as white as her sister's. Will father make me marry too? I don't want to marry one of the guys here. No one here does it for me, you know? Cordelia sighed and took her sister by the arms. Not everything in the world revolves around you, Sarah. The sooner you realize that, the better. I never said it does, she protested. But seriously, all the men here will. Gross, Cordelia finished. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to feel forced into a loveless marriage for the sake of the pack. Yet, if we don't, Cordelia added, anyone at any time could take over, and we can't let that happen. What will you do? Cordelia asked, or Sarah asked. Shaking her head, Cordelia actually looked at her sister and what she had on. She wore fitted blue jeans with knee high boots. She paired it with a long white sweater, and she had her long blonde hair pulled into a ponytail. You look nice today. Any reason? She shrugged. I figured if Daddy was passing soon, it would be better to try to look my best than to come in as if I had just rolled out of bed. Lifting her eye, Cordelia crossed her arms over her chest. What are you trying to say? Maybe that a shower wouldn't hurt you. I mean, you're beautiful. Why not dress the part as the pack master's oldest daughter? You have a lot of power behind you if you just choose to use it. What do you know of power? She pushed past her sister and out of their father's room. Starting down the familiar family hallway, she stopped in the living room and picked up her purse. Apparently, not as much as you, but I know enough to understand my place in this pack. Fine. Cordelia turned and faced her sister. Anger rose, and she wanted to grab her sister, shake her, and get her to wake the hell up to the reality they were both in. Then you go marry whoever you want and let him become the new pack alpha. Because I'm out. What? No, you can't leave me here like this. Oh, yes, I can, and I will. Watch me. She turned toward the door. Sarah grabbed her by the arm and yanked her back. Please don't leave, she whispered. I need you here with me. I can't do any of this without you. And Cordy, she whispered, I'm scared. I'm really, truly scared. With a sigh, Cordelia lowered her head and let go of the door. She loved her sister, but she didn't have to like her right now. Look, she started and led Sarah over to the couch. The women sat and Cordelia crossed one leg over the other. There's an exception of there's an expectation of us I don't agree with. If we were born males, this wouldn't be an issue. The alpha role would have naturally fallen to me. However, since we are women, we have to marry a man and he will be the one to run the pack. I want to do this for our father, but not with anyone here. I know my mate is out there. I just know it, Sarah. But I can't stay here. I have to go find him. Once I do, we can marry and he can then rule. She lifted her brow. So that's your big plan to run away until you find some schmuck to marry and convince him to be the alpha? Wow. She started and felt defeat plague her thoughts. Since you put it that way, it sounds idiotic. Sarah took her hand and held it in her lap. Listen, if you're able to find your mate and he's willing to move mountains for you, then anything is possible. And Cordy, yeah, you're worth it. Never forget that. You're amazing and a wonderful big sister. Cordelia smiled and pulled her sister close to her. You're not so terrible either. Their mother died when Cordelia was 10 and Sarah was barely 8. Cancer ate away at her body from the inside out. It was horrible, painful death. When she passed, they had the funeral, followed by the cremation of her body. She often dreams of the day they set flames to her mother's body. What if she were still alive? What if she felt the pain? Did she tell her mother how much she loved her? Could she have done something more to prevent the death from happening? Their father reminded them time and time again it was not their fault. She had cancer, and that was that. Cordelia took it upon herself to raise her sister from that point forward. Not that their father didn't help, because he did, but he had the responsibility of the pack as well. There were also unattached female pack members who wanted to be with the alpha. It was sometimes humorous to watch their father turn down advances. Other times, the girls would play games with the women. Once, during an afternoon outing, Sarah brought back a mouse she found dead in the field. She was crying because the critter didn't have a chance. Cordelia told her to give up the remains and she would bury him properly. What Sarah didn't know was Cordelia decided to plant the dead mouse on a plate watching for the woman wanting attention from her father. When dinner was served, Cordelia brought out a plate for the woman and set it in front of her, then left the room. She joined Sarah in the kitchen and waited. Then it happened. The woman screamed and Cordelia burst out in laughter. Moments later, their father rushed into the kitchen and he had fire in his eyes. To say he was pissed was an understatement. He bit down to Cordelia's level and said, "Tell me the truth, girl. Did you place that mouse on her plate?" She nodded and never broke eye contact with her father. "Was that the mouse I brought you today?" "Is that the mouse I brought you today?" "Shh!" Cordelia returned. Her dad then turned and motioned for Sarah to leave the kitchen. Cordelia felt scared that day and wasn't sure what her father would do, but as soon as they were alone, she braced for the worst. Then her father shocked her by letting out a chuckle. She frowned and tilted her head. "Why are you laughing?" "Because, you sly young girl, you should have seen the look on her face." He laughed even harder than Cordelia smiled. "You're not mad at me?" "Oh, you're grounded, but no, I'm not mad. She left here as fast as she tried to get in, and that I thank you for." "But I'm still grounded." "Ask again, and I'll whip your behind." She nodded quickly and added, "Yes, sir." She then ran off for her bedroom with a devious smile, with a devious grin. She looked at her sister as they sat on the couch, and Cordelia smiled at the memory of the dead mouse. It's always been you and me against the world, Sarah. What would I do without you?" She shrugged. "Let's not find out." Cordelia leaned forward and whispered, "When the sun goes down tonight, I'm leaving. I can't do this, Sarah. I know my mate is out there. Reckless or not, I won't marry someone here just for the sake of the alpha roll. I won't do it. If it were me in your position, I'd do the same. But promise me you'll be back." "Of course I'll be back." "Good, because if you don't, then it will be me having to marry." Cordelia hugged her sister once more and whispered, "I promise I'll be back. It may take me a few days, but I'll be back." "Father only has a few days left at that. I need you here." She nodded, then let her sister go. "I won't let you down. I love you." "I love you too." The moon was bright in the night sky, and the last light in their pack finally went dark. She stood by the lake that surrounded their pack property, and she hid behind one of the many trees. Stripping from her clothes, she called on the magic and shifted into wolf form. The first few times she learned how to shift, it was painful. Her bones broke and her skin burned from her body, to be replaced by a body full of fur, a snout, and teeth as sharp as razors. She shook her large wolf form and looked up at the moon. "You have to be out there. Please hear me and help me find you." She dug her paws into the ground and took off in a sprint. She was out of their territory in a matter of minutes. She was one of the fastest runners in her pack and could cover a few miles in a matter of minutes. "Help me find you. I need to find you. Where are you?" This thought Hey guys. She dug her paws into the ground and took off in a sprint. Let's see. All right. This thought continued on autoplay as she ran. She sniffed the air, but all she picked up was moss, mold from past rains, and other animals. Owls called their evening songs, and occasionally she caught the eyes of other night creatures along her path. Her heart slammed in her chest, and she would need to slow soon, or exhaustion would take over. She could pass out and revert back to her human form, lying naked for anyone to discover. Help me find you. I need to find you. Yes, I am reading Alpha Rising by Julie Morgan. I'm on chapter 2. Tears threatened her eyes. Was she crazy for thinking this could work? This world was so big, and she was only one person, one wolf. There's no possible way she could ever find her mate like this. She sniffed the air while holding back tears at the same time, and this time something tickled her senses. She sniffed again, and her eyes widened. What is that? That's new. Hold on. She sniffed again and realized it was the scent of a male not of her pack. Another shifter. She inhaled once more, and digging her feet into the soft ground, she banked right and bolted in her new direction. She ran with a renewed sense of purpose. She found someone. He was new to her. He was someone other than the group of unattached men in her pack. He could be her mate. He could be someone that could not only save her, but save her family, her entire wolf family. Inhaling again, the scent grew stronger. Hear me. Do you feel me? Can you smell my scent? Her muscles were beginning to burn, and in the distance, with the darkness shrouded by the trees, it was large, and the closer she came, the more corporeal it became. It's a cabin. There's a light on inside and smoke coming from the chimney. He's in there. My mate is in there. She was taking a big chance on the fact that this man whose scent she picked up on was indeed her mate, but it was chance she was willing to take. Not paying attention to where she was running, as she was focused solely on the cabin and the potential man inside, she crashed into a tree. A loud scream escaped her wolf form, and she couldn't breathe. Whether the breath was just knocked out of her lungs or she broke a few ribs, she didn't know. She tried to move but couldn't. She looked toward the cabin and saw a man running toward her. Then blackness took her under just as she heard, Are you all right? Chapter 3. And I don't know if I'll get all the way through it, but we sure will try. Killian stepped out on his porch and stretched. A sense of relief and freedom was finally starting to settle in. It had been a long time, if ever, since he had felt this free. The stars were plentiful, and there was a chill in the air. The winter solstice was just around the corner. After reaching his cabin last night, he shifted, went inside and showered, then passed out on his bed. He had run over 100 miles, and his body was sore. He hunted prey along the way to keep his fuel recharged, dipped in a few chilled springs to keep him focused, and continued to flee until his nose no longer smelled the putrid scent of death. Relaxation. True, free reign. He now had the ability to do what he wanted, when he wanted, without the fear of his father raining hell down on him any chance he had. He thought of his brother Lucian and wished things could have been different with him. He wanted nothing but happiness for his brother, but with the strain between them, it would have been impossible to leave if he mentioned any of this to him. His father would have bound him in a cell and starved the truth out of him, then beat him in the ring pit, all while Lucian was forced to watch. There was no enjoyment in watching your brother have the life beat out of him, his skin barely clinging to what was left of his body. Thankfully, neither Lucian nor Killian ever experienced a beating of this magnitude, but they'd witnessed them more often than not. The first one he witnessed still gave him nightmares, watching a man be tied to a pole, his clothes stripped from his body, and as his lashings started, the man cried out in pain, wishing for death. He was all but a bloody stump by the time his father was done with him. He left his body out to rot in the woods. It was wrong. So very wrong. He sucked in a shuddering breath and pushed the memory away. He was free. Then it all changed when he inhaled. His eyes widened and pupils dilated. He sniffed the air again. He didn't recognize the smell, but he wanted to follow it. The scent was feminine, alluring, intoxicating. Reaching for some of the wood on the porch while he inhaled the scent once more, he carried an armload of the cuttings into the cabin. Setting it in the corner near the fireplace, he sucked in another deep breath. The fragrance grew stronger, tickling the inside of his nostrils and making his head spin. If I didn't know any better, I would wager sirens. He recalled the speech about destiny that his mother told him when he was just a small boy. It's been said when destiny knocks on your door, always be willing to take a chance because you never know how perfect something or someone could be. He missed his mother. What would she think about what his father had done to the pack? He went back to the porch once more, and closing his eyes, he inhaled the sweet scent of the female that was in his territory. He thought of his mother's advice and finding his mate. You'll know your mate is nearby when you're able to pick up her scent. Killian's heart leaped when he heard the crash in a nearby tree. Then his mind went on high alert when he heard the female scream. Not just any scream, though. No, it was a yelp of a shifter. He knew the difference between a two-natured beast and a wolf. The barks, the yelps, everything was louder, more pronounced, and if close enough, the voices could be heard in the nearby mind, almost like a soft whisper. He jumped off his porch and ran to where he heard the screams, sniffing the air and looking around wildly. There, in the distance, in the mud from the past snow that melted, lay a beautiful, white, two-natured female. Killian ran harder, faster, until he reached the woman and slid on his knees toward her. Are you all right? He yelled and took her head in his hands. Her pain-filled blue eyes looked up at him before they rolled into the back of her head as she was out. He checked his surroundings to see if she were possibly being chased or followed. He sniffed the air and couldn't pick up any on anything else. There was only this woman in her shifted form passing out in his arms. Shit, he whispered. Scooping her up carefully, he pulled her against his body. Her scent filled his head, and it was like an aphrodisiac. He wanted to bathe in it, slather it across his body, and never lose the smell. As he had carried the she-wolf into his home, he kicked the door closed behind him. Carrying her through the cabin, he stopped at the main bedroom and paused. Do I lay her down in here or put her in the guest room? What happens when she wakes up? Who is this woman? Why do I feel a connection to her and I have no idea who she is? He stepped past his bedroom and started toward the guest room when he heard her groan in his arms, followed by a whimper. He looked down at her face full of white fur. Her fur was caked with mud, leaves, and debris, but a bath would come once she was awake. He tried to imagine what she looked like in her human form. Killian opened the door to the guest room. Suddenly, she turned slightly in his arms, then licked his chest. He stopped and stared at the beast in his arms. What the? He lifted his brows and wondered if the woman was half awake and this was her way of thanking him, or if she was dreaming and the kiss or lick was an accident. With a sigh, he left the room and made his way back toward his bedroom. When he walked through, a photograph of his mother was on the nightstand. It was as if she were staring at him with an I told you so look. He could just see, he could just hear his mother now if she were still alive. See, there's your mate, right on your doorstep. I told you destiny would knock. It was a good thing he didn't make his bed. He laid the shifter in his bed, and his left arm was still under her body. He didn't want to move her any more than necessary, so he lay down next to her. Her body lay facing his, and he pulled the covers up over their bodies. He ran his hand over the fur of her face and whispered, You're all right. You'll be just fine. He inhaled her scent, then continued, My name is Killian Blackcrown. I don't know if you can hear me, but once you wake up, we can talk and see why you were running so hard. There's a creek just outside my cabin. We can fish there, wash up, or hell shower. I do have plumbing, but we'll figure all this out. He continued to brush her fur with his hand, and the female inhaled sharply. Then she opened her eyes. The bluest hues stared back into his, and he swore she saw directly into his soul. Something passed through him in that moment, like the weight of the world. It was so heavy, it was too much for one person to care, but it was also weightless. He was tethered to her in a way he had only ever read about. Images of a woman with long, silvery, blonde hair running through the forest on long, sleek legs flashed through his mind, and she had an intoxicating laugh. Just as she slowed in her movements, she began to turn toward him. He only saw the outline of her body and face before the vision stopped. He gasped, and the woman blinked once, then closed her eyes. The soft whine escaped her, and she let go a long breath. What the fuck was that? He closed his eyes and knew exactly what had just happened. He cradled the female closer to his body until her head was on his chest. He rolled to his back and continued to run his fingers through her fur. My mate. Then, slowly, ever so slowly, her body began to shift. His eyes widened and he looked down at the wolf in his arms. The hair began to retract into her body, the four limbs shifted into arms and legs. The pads became fingers, and her snout was replaced by the face of a woman that took his breath away. Her hair was the same color from his vision. Her naked body shivered in the bed next to him, and he pulled her closer, wrapping his body with hers. He tugged the blankets closer around their shoulders, and he felt her sigh into his neck. Thank you, she whispered. He blinked. He recalled waking with women in his bed from drunken nights after a fight his father set up, or just a night at the bar with his brother, Lucian, but going to sleep with a woman he had never met before, but knew without a doubt was his mate, threw him through a different kind of loop. Why are you guys using mine? It was one he'd never experienced before in his life, and the realization of this fact scared him a lot. He ran from his responsibilities of becoming the alpha of his father's pack. It wasn't his intention to find his mate along the way, but now that she was, what the hell was he supposed to do? Alrighty, y'all. That's all for tonight. That gets you all the way up to chapter 4. Those on TikTok, this is Alpha Rising, Rise of the Alpha, Book 1 by Julie Morgan. It is free on KU, everybody. So, hey, Raven. Hey, Julie. How is everybody? I got a handful on TikTok too. How is everybody on TikTok tonight? Hope everybody's doing well. And let me show you those on TikTok the cover, because this cover, I am so in love with this cover. It's just not even funny. I've drooled over this cover so many times. All right, TikTok. There's the cover, y'all. So that cover is so hot. Ah. And again, that's by Julie Morgan. So, all right, everybody. Thank you, Miss Olivia. I appreciate it. Love you too. TikTok. I'm also looking at YouTube. They're on my YouTube channel. Let's see. Book 2 comes out August the 10th, y'all. So that's good. because I'm going to have to read this so that I can read book 2. How many books are you going to have in the series? Do you know yet? I know, Olivia, such tenderness. Raven, I have missed you, girl. I'm so glad you're here. I can't even read TikTok, y'all. I gotta put my glasses on for that. I am obsessed with this cover. Hey, Emma. Hey, Medina Jordan. Rest in peace, Candace. Yep. So, alrighty. I'm gonna turn TikTok off. And I'm obsessed with this cover. This cover is like 3 is in edits. Yay! So when is it expected to be? Because I hate I hate reading and having to wait. So I usually try to wait till they're all out before I start reading them. But if it's going to be out like in September, I can go ahead and read ahead. It'll be all right. Miss you too, Raven. I hope you're still there. I don't know if you still are. Oh, I didn't put my TikTok up there, did I? Oh, I'm so sorry. It is Renee Atkins Lover. There's my TikTok. So if you're on TikTok, come follow me and message me, let me know who you are so that I can follow you back. I'm pretty particular about who I follow. Although if you saw, I've got 9,000. I've had to go back because I'm like I was following everybody I liked. Didn't know there was a limit. So, alrighty, everybody, it's time for me to get off here. And thank you so much, Miss Julie, for joining us and for letting me read your book. I greatly appreciate it. And I've got to pack and get ready for Savannah. Savannah, Savannah, Savannah. Ugh, it's gonna be hot and miserable, especially on Friday. All right, everybody. I love you, and I'm gonna miss you. And y'all have a good time. Y'all have a good time while I'm gone. Okay. Try not to. Oh, anytime, Miss Julie. Anytime. It was my pleasure. Although, if you want to send me a poster size of this cover, I wouldn't complain. I mean, damn. Who is your cover model? I don't know that it's him directly though that's got me on. It's the colors. It's the combination. You know, a lot of times you find a good cover model, but then the background just is like, all right, okay, that'll fit because everybody's looking at him. And but this is just a combination of him, the wolf, the moon, and the trees, and then with the red smoke or whatever it is in the background in the front. It's just ah. It does. It's just a combination of them, and it just I don't know. Though red and blue is my favorite colors, or two of my favorite colors anyway. But I think it's just a combination, and it just stands out. I mean, whoever did your book cover did an awesome job. I'm just gonna say that. So, all right, I gotta get off from here. My Braves are playing in there, so and I gotta get up. I got one more day of work. Oh, so all right, everybody, have a good one. Love you. Happy reading.